First night they reopened a couple of blocks away. Huge crowd there, and bought a lot of gift certificates. I just want to say, for folks who want to support businesses like this, they can go to Lafayette. They have gift certificates there. Here, they at Tasty's, I'll have gift certificates next week. And for those of us who want to support our businesses downtown, it's a great way we can do that. Give the gift certificates to our friends and family members. I can give them several to law enforcement officers and some of our heroes, some of our first-line defenders. So it makes me feel good, it makes them feel good, and helps make sure these businesses get off to a good start.
I want to thank the community for showing so much love to Tasty's for the last, we was only open for 5 days, then we shut down for the riot. Now we back open, but we've been getting so much love and support from the city of Wilmington and other parts of Delaware. Just from the license inspections and the health department and the fire department, we've been getting really a lot of support from the big businesses down here.
The key to the success of any organization I've ever been a part of, I don't care if it's like a baseball team, I don't care if it's a college, a university, a high school, a business, a hospital, a city, a state, key is for success is always leadership. Always leadership. I think we're blessed here in Wilmington with good leadership, gifted leadership, like our mayor, like the folks on city council, and they got a lot of people in the community that are involved as well. And Mike Brzezicki, to his credit, he's not a divider, he's a uniter. He's not somebody that builds walls, he's a bridge builder. He thinks we're stronger together, and that's the kind of leadership we need for our country, and I think that's the kind of leadership that we have here in the city of Wilmington.
All right, I'll see y'all later, all right? All right. A lot of people are asking me, Ivan, what exactly is DETV? DETV is nothing but positive news 200% of the time. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at DETVCH, Facebook DETV, and if you have any leads or anybody that you want to highlight, feel free to contact us on those platforms. All right, my name's Ivan. I'll talk to you later.
Norman Oliver, my co-host, Jermaine Anderson Jr., my grandson. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone's talking about the coming back of Community Crossfire. I've been getting so many phone calls, email, text messages, thanking us for coming back. By election time, we will have hundreds and hundreds of people, thousands of people watching, not just here in the city of Wilmington, but throughout the state of Delaware and also throughout the country. There's a lot of things been happening, a lot of stuff happening here, especially in our city, especially in the city of Wilmington, Delaware. So what I did today, I invited a few pastors on, bishop and a few reverends. I think I would like to get a different perspective from the black clergy. What's their thoughts? Let me talk a little bit about what we talked about last week when we had some of the organizers on here, Kobe Owens and his group. They did a fabulous job. I said over and over about my nervous energy, about the march, about the organizing, because I wanted to make sure that the organizers were not getting hurt. I mean, Kobe Owens was a young man, but you got to give him props. Give them props for what they did. A good friend of mine, my lady, Pastor Tila Matthews, said people are getting sick and tired of getting sick and tired. And I think that is the cry. Not only, and Pastor, I'm gonna come to you in a second, right? When they talk about racism, systemic racism, right? I think they talk about in housing, people with jobs, people unemployed. When you just do something small as go to Rehoboth Beach, Dewey Beach, Bethany Beach, you see 90% white kids and people on the beach. You're like, where's the black kids? I mean, I think that they deserve that. I think it's all that. When you start to take down monuments and statues, I think people are frustrated. And again, I thought the young lady signed, I talked about this last week. It said, our ancestors, we're not our ancestors. We will, it said F you up, but I'm gonna say mess you up. Because our ancestors probably were a little bit more lenient. These folks now, they're not playing. How you doing, Pastor Livingston?
Oh, I'm doing very good. I'm doing great today.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing, just for the purpose of getting this conversation started.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me and allowing me to be on your show, just to kind of give some thoughts. One thing you asked me to tell me about myself, this line of this place of confronting racism and white supremacy is a front that I've been on for many, many years. I started my professional career in 1980, right out of college, and I worked for United Methodist News Service in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. And a part of my responsibility, or one of my beats on that particular news service, was to cover the United Methodist Church's Commission on Religion and Race. And of course, I got involved not only in covering that, but got involved in addressing some of the issues that the Commission on Religion and Race confronted. And I have been working for not only combating racism and white supremacy. They go together. White supremacy is systemic. They go together. People think that white supremacy is about white supremacists, but no, it's not. It's about a system that continues to oppress and repress our people. So I've been working against racism and white supremacy, and to some extent for racial reconciliation for the last 40 years.
So you was doing that even when you was in the ministry? You were looking into this whole white supremacy or white supremacist as when you were in the ministry?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm still in the ministry.
I understand
It is about confronting systems. I believe the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ is about confronting systems of injustice, confronting systems of oppression. When Jesus' first sermon says that the Spirit of the Lord was upon him, and he came to set captives free, to free and liberate those who are oppressed. And that has always been the foundation for the ministry that God has called me to. That's been my foundational scripture. So I've always confronted racism and white supremacy in ministry, and I've always lifted up African American people. I believe God calls us to be African American people. He calls us to be who we are. He created us, and he didn't make any mistakes when he made us as African American people. So yes, I've always confronted racism, white supremacy. I've always lifted up and affirmed African Americans in ministry.
Thank you, Jermaine.
Yes, Pastor Livingston, a few days ago, Rashad Brooks was tragically murdered by the police. Before that, it was George Floyd. Do you think that the police have taken a good grasp on understanding how to treat African American, not even African Americans, just people in general, when they are detaining them or arresting them?
I don't know if they have a good grasp of what's happening, but in this moment in time, in this moment, this historical moment, what we have known as African Americans for such a long time is being exposed. You would think with the killing of Rashad Brooks in Atlanta, you would think that police would be on notice. You're being watched. Be careful. You know what you've been doing. You can't continue to do. But they continue to do it. They continue to do the kinds of things that oppress and repress and even fatally murder our people for very small reasons. And this isn't new. And we are seeing, and I think the whole nation is seeing in this moment, Jermaine, I think we're seeing in this moment that this is a part of the systemic racism in police departments, but we have to go back. That's why I really enjoy teaching African American history and culture, because to some extent, theoretically and philosophically, and we can debate, police departments were created to hunt down and track African American people, created to kind of arrest African Americans on trumped up charges. During Reconstruction, that was called the Black Codes, and people could be arrested because they were unemployed, or people could be arrested for some of these fake trumped up charges. So no, they don't realize it, but it's a part of their culture, it's a part of their system, and I think all of us are seeing that right now.
Yes, if I can get a follow-up question, if that's possible. Yes, do you think the police officer that murdered Rashad Brooks should be charged, and not only the one that pulled the trigger on the gun, but also the one that was there with the officer?
Oh, I think absolutely, absolutely. Why is it that anyone can shoot a person in the back running away? There shouldn't even be a question. It's only a question when we're talking about black and brown bodies. If the police officer were black and the man running away were white, we wouldn't even ask the question. And I'm not confronting you for asking the question. It's the world in which we live in. If the police officer were black and the man running away were white, we wouldn't even have the discussion.
Jermaine, I like that question, and I like your answer, Pastor. And I want to kind of expand on that. So you said police departments were formulated to incarcerate or lock up black people?
Well,
can you explain that? Because I've never heard it like that.
If we go back to the Holocaust of enslavement, if we go back to the period of enslavement, the first kind of grouping of police forcing or policing or corralling African Americans were really the slave patrols that happened during the Holocaust of enslavement. And then after slavery, they had what they call black codes. And black codes were one of the most understood, or one of the most black codes that people know about, is that people were arrested for vagrancy, which means just simply means you didn't have a job and you could not prove that you had a job. And your testimony, African Americans' testimony, could not keep them. They could say, well, I work here, I work there, but if they could not prove it, they were arrested. And then what happened is they rounded up people to corral, if you will, to go and get these African Americans, and they deputized them, and they created created forces or groups of people. There was a time in this country where cities didn't have.
Do you think we need police departments?
Excuse me?
Do you think we need police departments?
I think in 2020 and 2021, I think we need police departments, but they need to be censored, if you will. I'll use that word. They need to be minimized. They need to be made smaller. There's no need for a police department to have military equipment. There's no need for police departments to have that kind of equipment. Some of these police departments with SWAT teams and so on and so forth, they don't need to have all that equipment. They don't need to have the kinds of things that will make them come down on communities. So we do need police departments, but we need them to police crimes. What happened to Rashad Brooks, it was not a crime. The man was asleep in his car. You know, that was not a crime. Why even were the police involved in it? Somebody could have knocked on the window. Excuse me, sir, you cannot sleep here.
There you go.
Could you move your car?
Jermaine?
You know.
Yes, Pastor, protesting has been going on for years, and obviously African Americans are still getting shot by the police. Do you think we're going to take a different approach to stop that from happening, or do you think protesting is going to have to continue to happen for the message to get across?
Well, what's happening right now, Jermaine, and it's good to be talking to you today. What's happening right now is the movement is being led by our young people, and I think it should be led by our young people. One of the things that people don't realize and understood saying about the civil rights movement is Martin Luther King was only 26 years old when the Montgomery bus boycott started. But one of the things that's going to have to happen is we're going to have to not let up. We're going to have to not let up protesting. We're going to have to keep protesting. We're going to have to keep demanding that there be a change. But Jermaine, one of the things I want to say about this time, though, is that this time is a little bit different. The things that are happening now with so many people recognizing, with so many people understanding what we and your grandfather have been talking about for years. We know this is happening, but now so many people see it. So we're going to have to keep protesting. We're going to have to not let up. We're going to have to continue to say these changes need to be made. And not just in police enforcement, but other areas of society as well.
Do you think that looting and rioting is also an answer to get the message across?
Well, Martin Luther King said, and we've heard it quoted a lot, that rioting is the language of the unheard. Rioting is the language of the unheard. In certain circumstances, I wouldn't necessarily do it, but I can understand the anger that people have, and with the Rayshard Brooks situation, if I was there, I can't even say I wouldn't be involved, because when does it let up? If police are not watching their P's and Q's, so to speak, when everybody's watching, when are they going to stop beating us down? When are they going to stop doing the things that they have done? And so I don't necessarily think it's right, but I understand it, and after it happens, and I'm sorry that it happens like this, after looting and rioting happens, then people are ready to talk.
You know, Pastor, we can have you on here probably for an hour. I'm enjoying this conversation. We have about 2 minutes. What do you think? Have you ever seen anything like this? I mean, you talk about the work you've done in D.C., the work you're doing in ministry. I mean, I know you see the Rodney King, we've seen the Gardner, we've seen, I mean, even civil rights stuff. I mean, you were there with the Dr. King killing and all that. Have you ever seen a movement or anything like this in your lifetime?
I haven't seen anything like this, no. Wow. I haven't seen anything like this. But I do want to say, and I want to speak up for the civil rights movement.
Please do.
What's going on right now is the civil rights movement in its own time. You know, the civil rights movement, when we had the civil rights movement, we didn't have social media. Civil rights movement, we didn't have news going all over the world in seconds.
Right.
The civil rights movement, we didn't have all that. So I think it's the civil rights movement for 2020. And because it's 2020, it's unlike we've ever seen anything before. I think young people picking up the mantle, or young people picking up the baton, that's the same as the civil rights movement. Not only Martin Luther King, but the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and other committees like that were very vocal in the civil rights movement. So it is something that we've never seen before, but I think most of the things that we've never seen before are because we're 2020. Even with the George Floyd killing, everybody was able to see that man die right there in the street. And that kind of thing has happened many, many times before, but the world was not watching.
Wow. But they were watching with Eric Gardner, and it still didn't have this kind of effect.
Same thing, Eric Garner. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you, man. And for those who are just tuning in and watching, this is Community Crossfire. We're back, and Jermaine Anderson Jr., his mother and father here, Jermaine Sr., Latoya, will be watching. And also want to give a big shout out to my friend Livingston, the good Kappa man. We're good Kappas, so he get kudos for that. Phi Nupe and all that. So stay tuned. We have 2 more pastors, a bishop and a pastor coming on. We're talking live. This is Community Crossfire, like you like, the way you like it. Thank you so much. Again, Pastor, thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
I'm Tabitha Aries, Christina Cultural Arts Center's School of the Arts Program Manager. CCAC offers fall and winter spring class sessions, which can be viewed on our customer portal. Just visit our website at ccacde.org. Be sure to stop in during our Art Loop on First Fridays for a happy hour networking mixers. Christina Cultural Arts Center, we're here for you.
Welcome back to Community Crossfire, another point of view. I'm your host, Norman Oliver, with my co-host, my grandson, Jermaine Anderson Jr. We're bringing you information that's going to enhance you. We've been doing this show for a while. I took off for a couple years, but we're back, so we're gonna weed out all the phonies who have been on Facebook, talk that. And as the campaigns and political season riles up or start moving, we will be on those candidates too, because guess what? Every candidate has a record. And we will be endorsing candidates. We're not afraid to talk about any issue here. So I've been doing this with Maynard Jackson, Hicks Anderson, Leo Marshall, Herman Holloway Sr. and Jr., Al Plant, Hazel Plant. So some of these little guys who throw little shapes, I'm kind of blanking off. Bishop Gibson, I know you wasn't. This is not a directed at you. Sometimes I just got to go a little crazy.
That's fine.
Because that's who I am. And you know, because some people talk the talk and some people walk the walk. Bishop Gibson, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Norma, so much for having me come to share with you.
Yeah, Bishop, let me jump right into it, right?
Yeah.
So IMAC is, what is IMAC? Could you explain what IMAC is and what it means to the city of Wilmington?
So IMAC is the Interdenominational Ministers Action Council. It is our job to make sure as we talk to political figures throughout the state, throughout the county and the city, that we be kind of the first voice that they express their concerns about their policies, procedures, ideas off of, because we house at the churches of worship and the places of faith, we house the people that put them into office. And so we would like for them to see as significant personnel that can help them be steered in the right way as we continue to enhance our community.
I'm glad you said that. What do you say to people who say that the black church or black churches are not involved as much as they used to be or they should be? Or is that a misnomer?
I think it is a misnomer. I'm kind of the new guy on the block in regards to being in Wilmington. I've been here now 8 years, but I pastored in Philadelphia for 30 years, so Philly is my home. And so coming here, I found kind of a different culture in regards that Philadelphia had a big heart of fellowship and camaraderie among the clergy. Here I found people in silos. I found people in their own kingdoms and in their own spaces. And so moving up in the ranks of IMAC, I did not ask for these positions, but I was steered in this direction. But now, as the first vice president of IMAC and working close with Dr. Oliver, trying to stir a conscious culture of being my brother's keeper and my sister's keeper, and that we all have something to offer that can stimulate each other, that as we move collectively, we can get more done. The spirit of the Long Ranger is long gone. Even the Long Ranger got his head together and realized he needed Tonto. You need somebody on your team. You cannot get the job done by yourself. And the real deal for me is that God's kingdom, his rule, his reign, cannot come until your kingdom goes.
Yes, Pastor, when you became Pastor Gibson, when you became a pastor, what was your main goal and objective when you decided to go into this field?
I've been pastoring now for 37 years. I've been preaching now for 36 years. So I've been in this business 3/4 of my life. I have 3 earned degrees, and I wanted to be a person that made a difference, made a footprint by which my community could trust me, could count on me, depend on me, to fight for them in every sphere and in every arena. I am, my undergrad is in education, so I'm a stickler on education and academia. And I think that is one of the big places where when I got here, I had to not adjust myself, but I had to pay attention to what I call the good old boys club. But I don't fare well in good old boys club because I put in the work. And so I have a problem, with this whole systemic racism stuff that has lifted. And I know we'll talk about that, so we'll go deeper into that later. But my job was to be able to help my community, help my city, and to make sure that I believe that when there is a saved city, it's a safe city.
As a black minister, as a black bishop, as a black preacher, what do you say to some of these young black guys out here now who are millenniums, right? And you said you've been doing this for 36, 37 years. And I'm sure you've seen a switch where there's more younger black women probably come to church more than black men. How do you get that young black man back in the church?
Well, the problem.
Is that the truth?
Yeah, you have hit it. Graduating from seminary is 65% female. The whole paradigm has shifted. Then I went to a Lutheran seminary. So in the Lutheran seminary, I was actually in seminary during my Master's of Divinity and a pastor. There are other reformations like Lutheran, Presbyterian, Episcopal, AME, that you can't be a pastor. You could only be a candidate for being ordained after you get your Master's of Divinity. So I just think that when it comes to this kind of millennial generation, these X's and Y's, I think that they have to really take into account the necessity to balance out what I call academia and the anointing. That it is important for you to be able to also marry Christ and culture and find a way to understand not only who you are, but whose you are. But remember that you have 5 generations in the congregation that you pastor, and you have to be able to speak the proper language to them all and make sure everyone is being fed properly.
Gotcha.
Yes, Pastor Gibson, how important do you think it is for parents to have the talk with their children on systematic racism and how to deal with it?
Oh, I think that the conversation is an imperative. I have grown children, but we have had to talk along the way. My baby boy is 27 and my daughter is 36. Phenomenal young adults with great jobs. My son works for J.P. Morgan, and my daughter works for one of these banks here. I can't even think of it, forgive me, but one of these banks doing a great job. And I believe that you have to have the conversation of policing because of how it's done. And systemic racism is something that we have to talk about because, remember, black folk can't be racist. They might be prejudiced. They might have biases, right, but they can't be racist. Yes. Because in order to have a racism, you have to be able to have a system by which you now use that system as leverage to oppress the people that you think are less than what you are. So, we have not had that kind of economical power. We have not had that kind of white privilege as being black. And so, we can't call ourselves racist. That's not what we do. What we do is that we have had to succumb under the hard taskmaster, but a change is about to come. This new generation has a different mind, and I think this last thing with Floyd was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you just tuned in, you're watching Community Crossfire, another point of view. As always, we dig in and we're getting fired up, and we always ask the tough and relevant questions, and hope that you're enjoying it. We hope that you enjoy the questions. If you don't like them, you don't like our show, turn to something else because we're going to come to you live. Bishop, what has pissed you off through this whole ordeal? What's everything going on?
Man.
Talk to me.
Are we still on camera?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
You can't. That's why I said.
I didn't know if I was gonna go left or not.
You can go gangster, you can go Philly. That's why we call this Crossfire, man. That's why I said, what pissed you off? Because I can hear it.
What has pissed me off is that in the midst of
talk about it,
a pandemic globally, we now have seen the covers pulled off of America, and the epidemic of racism has stood up full grown. It's kind of like when you read Genesis, the serpent is a snake, but when you get to Revelations, he's a dragon. Who fed him? So it's now like racism here where we are has stood up like a dragon. I'm trying to figure out along the line who fed him, who was giving him so much food, so much nutrition, so much power. And so for me,
I am just, it's the sick and tired of being sick and tired. But I'm at the place now. No, somebody has to pay. There has to be retribution. There has to be recompense. No. Somebody needs to repent. There has to be reparations. This list for me of things of restoration that has to happen now because it has gone too far too long, and we can't take no more of this. We can't take no more of this.
Sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, can't take no more of this.
Jermaine?
Yes, Pastor Gibson, systematic racism is a big problem in America. How do you think we overcome it? And I know a lot of people say, oh, it could be generational wealth, it could be dealing with this and that. I want to know, what do you think is the root of the problem, and how do we get to it?
Okay, for me, Jermaine, and I thank you for that. For me, everything lies at the root. I think the root of the problem is sin, and systematic racism is just the shoots and the fruit of the root. I think the way that we bring about resolution to it is that we have to make sure that we are strategic in the things that we do. There's more to it than the protest. After the protest, what are we sitting down talking about? I'm really proud right now for the Black Caucus under the direction of Darius Brown in regards to the particular bills that they're trying to get passed and moved. And that's the way we do. We have to change policy. Legislations has to be passed. And we have to make sure that our voice is constantly heard and that we're not backing up.
Bishop, I'm glad you brought up Darius Brown, our senator. I want to give a shout out to Senator Brown. I thought he did an incredible job. I was in a foxhole with him in a number of meetings with our U.S. Congresswoman Elisa Blunt Rochester, our
Yes.
Mayor Mike Pazicki, our Governor. He was in some of those meetings.
Yes.
Bishop, Governor John Carney, our Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, and my sisters Anthea Oliver and Honey for Shabazz. It was a lot of people. Michelle Harley were involved with it. And I thank you for coming on the show. And I hope folks continue to watch this. We have one more segment coming up, and that will be Pastor Calvin Brown, my good friend. So Bishop, in closing, thank you so very much. And we got to have you back on when you become president of IMAC.
It'd be my joy. Thank you so much for having me.
I was going to get your title, Brother George Bishop Gibson, the third, the sixth, the ninth, to the fourth pal. Thank you, man.
It's all great. Thank you.
Jermaine, you're doing an incredible job. So tune in and come back. We're not finished with you.
Thank you.
I'm Tabitha Aries, Christina Cultural Arts Center's School of the Arts Program Manager. CCAC offers fall and winter spring class sessions, which can be viewed on our customer portal. Just visit our website at ccacde.org. Be sure to stop in during our Art Loop on First Fridays for a happy hour networking mixers. Christina Cultural Arts Center, we're here for you.
Second Chances Farm is kicking off today an ambitious program to tackle childhood obesity and food deserts all at the same time. Our next door neighbor is Eastside Charter, and we plan on Friday, March 20th to kick off a 12-week program. We will deliver 200 community-supported agriculture CSA packages of 6 different crops we grow here at 3030 Bauer Street to 200 children and their families at Eastside Charter. Each one of those packages will contain 6 different things that are nutritious, and we'll rotate what is in there, and we'll have recipes and menus on how you can use this lovely food. Each package costs $20 a week. For 12 weeks is $240. And if you would like to support it, please go to our website, www.second, S-E-C-O-N-D, chances, C-H-A-N-C-E-S, farm.com. And there's a place where you can support our community-supported agriculture, our CSA program. It's one way. For $20 a week, you can make an impact on childhood obesity and food deserts in Wilmington.
Hi, I'm Andre Jones, a drama teacher at Christina Cultural Arts Center. I teach acting through narrative design. What is that, you say? Well, it's learning how to be while imagining and writing it down. Essentially experimenting with writing and acting simultaneously. The better you write, the richer the scene. The better you act, the better you can be. Be bold, be brilliant, be original, be imaginative, be generous in giving, but whatever you do, be. Because if you don't be, who do? Come, be with us. Christina Cultural Arts. Inspire greatness.
Oh yeah, welcome back to Community Crossfire and another point of view. When you thought we were finished with you, I got on now my good friend and the guy who brings the heat, who brings the fire, Pastor Calvin Brown. He and I go way back, and we did a lot of these community crossfires, and we will crossfire you to death. We're not afraid to talk about any issue, and I love this guy because not only do he talk the truth, he stands by what he believes. I think all the segments has been incredible, but I really like Reverend Calvin Brown, again, because he's a friend, a guy that when I was younger, I watched him. You know, he was always a sharp dresser, always a good talker. And I mean, even now, I call him for advice. He called me for advice. He's been involved with the turkey drive, and he and I are not afraid to get dirty. We've been in some war when it comes to politics, and sometimes we disagree. But guess what? We get on the phone and talk like gentlemen, like men. That's how it should be. Some of this discord that we have now in this city, some of these so-called leaders, they haven't been in no fights. We got battle wounds. See, I know what it takes. I know what FBI and ATF and Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General call you because somebody's trying to take a snipe at you. And a lot of times it's black people in our community. I know we talked about a lot of whites, but I'm telling you about a lot of blacks who I think are phony. And that's right. When the campaigns start coming up, I'm going to undress them because they have no track record. They have no legislative record, but they talk, and they hide behind Facebook. I don't watch that stuff. But I've been in the fights, bro, and I ain't afraid to fight. So that's my introduction to you, Pastor Brown. How are you, man?
I mean, good. Brother, how you been? You know, it's good to see you back on air, and, you know, but we keep in touch even when I guess the studio was not operational and a number of things, but it is important that we maintain a certain amount of integrity and dignity with whatever we do.
But some of them have none. So I'm getting right into it. What do you think about all this that's going on? What's your interpretation or perception?
It's a lot. It's a lot to digest. I know for a lot of African Americans, and we got a lot to fix on both sides of the equation. That's one thing I learned in math when I was at P.S. DuPont. If you do an algebraic expression, whatever you do on one side of the equation, you got to do on the other side in order to balance the equation properly. It's not all the police. It's not all the white people. We got stuff in the black community that needs resolutions. We got a lot of issues in our own community. I mean, I live on 3rd and Clayton. I grew up in Riverside, and then I moved to the Bucket, where I met your brother Abdul, and we were not the most saintly of people at that time, but I was proud of you because you was on your way to college. We were on the corner of 26th and Locust Street. Now, one time somebody asked me about you, and I think they were probing, and I told them, I said I was, and I told them I was on my way to California, and I told you this. I was on my way to California with my wife at a convention, and I picked up a magazine in the pocket of the airplane, and I seen a young man standing there with 5 prominent bankers and investors, and it was Norman Oliver. And I said, do you see the success and the progress you can make if you push yourself? I said, a lot of people complain about where they are in life, but they haven't done anything to improve it. And so if you don't water your lawn, if you don't put grass seeds out there and nurture it, then what do you expect? We got a lot of problems with police, but we got a lot of problems in our own community with each other.
Hey, Jermaine, I'm going to cut you off, Cal. Yeah. You're going to probably be more in tune with Pastor Brown. As he talking, you can ask him any questions you want. Where are you at right now? You don't have to go there with your president, with our president. I'm not going to say yours, because he's not president. What do you think of some of the things that going on in this administration. You get this all the time because you are a conservative Republican, and which is abnormal sometimes, right? And you would agree with me on that,
I agree.
especially in the city. And you
It shouldn't be, but it is.
And you stand your ground. So, do you think he's being misinterpreted through all this?
Well, I know a lot of people don't like President Trump. I happen to like him. I mean, I think he sometimes wears all his emotions on his sleeve, but at the same time, I think he's been good for the country in terms of economic development and certain things. Now, I get it. People say, well, he's a racist and this. I don't particularly care about that. You might say that's a bad position to take, but you don't really know what a person thinks in their heart. I mean, I've seen some things that the Democratic challenger, Joe Biden, said about African Americans that's been terrible. But black people got a blind loyalty because they wear a D behind their name. When you look at history and you look at Lester Maddox, Bull Connors, George Wallace, they were the Democrats that beat the black people in the South, that sicked the dogs on them. It wasn't the Republicans, it was the Democrats that done this. But for some reason, our people have a blind loyalty to you. You could be a Klansman, and if you run as a Democrat, they will vote for you because we are loyal to a letter rather than the ideology and the concept of people. What Trump is what he is. But what he's not is not incompetent. He understands economics, and people don't like him because he, if you say something to him, he gonna say something back. Now that's not unnormal.
Jermaine, talk to me. Get in.
That's not normal in the black community because we trash talk all the time, whether it's athletics, whether it's on the street. We do that. That's what we do. But we don't, for some reason, we don't like it. The president is just, to me, he acts just like most of the people that I know.
I knew you was going to wake some people up. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, you said that you don't care about the president being a racist.
I said if he is a racist, don't bother me.
I
don't know he's a racist.
Think most of America thinks he is.
Well, it doesn't matter what people think. It's what you can, what it is.
I think they know he is a
Just
racist.
give me for instance.
He said, go back to your shithole countries.
Well, what country?
Africa. I mean,
I'm not an African, and you aren't either.
An African American?
You ain't even an African American. You an American of African descent. You probably never been to Africa.
This is why I love Crossfire.
You know, people talk about their
Just because I haven't been to Africa doesn't mean I'm not an African.
You're not an African.
How do you know that?
Where was you born?
That has nothing to do with what we're talking.
It does have something to do with it. If you were born in America.
So if I'm not born in Africa, that means I'm not an African.
That means you're not an African. And they'll tell you, if you go to Africa, they'll tell you you're not an African.
That speaks volumes there, sir. Come on.
That's the truth, though.
Hey, Pastor, let me ask you a question. So what do you think when he came out, and you're a religious person, right? I mean, you're a person of God. When he held the Bible for a photo op, do you think that was appropriate?
I didn't hear you. Speak up a little bit.
I said, do you think that was appropriate when he brought the Bible out and had, the police to move the people back so he could get a photo op in Washington, D.C. in front of...
I mean, that's what it's being...
as a person of
Well, that's being spent as a photo op. But,
I mean, what's your,
you got to move. You know
what's
why?
your honest opinion, though?
You know why you got to move? Let me tell you why.
Democrat.
Let me tell you. You know why you got to move? We move all the time here. And when the vice president used to come, they block streets off. You can't come up the street. All of a sudden, it's a problem if the president come. If Barack Obama came to your town, they'll stop the traffic. They'll tell people to get back. It's the normal procedure. We made it something more. How do we know that it wasn't authentic that he came there and he had a genuine concern about the church being on fire? Instead of people talking about the church burning up, they want to talk about what they said was a photo op by the president. But here's a church on fire by the so-called protesters who are not protesters, who are anarchists, or trying to, because they lost an election, can't take it, and will do anything possible to destroy the man's presidency.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we're coming back to, Community Crossfire, and this is how we crossfire. Lil Jermaine, I'm glad you're here. Let me ask you another question. So what is your thoughts on what's happening with the police department? I heard you talk a little bit about it. When you have George Floyd, right, with the knee on his neck. You've seen it. I mean, I'm sure you've been harassed, you know, because the way you came up, you know, in the city streets with this whole police brutality. I mean, black people being shot. I mean, I'm sure. I mean,
it wasn't totally police brutality. We was criminals.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, I'm not gonna all of a sudden say we were choir boys. We was hustling, gambling. It was
but everybody, you can't put, like you said, you can't put
not
everybody.
Everyone was.
I'm talking about. He asked me about my day.
Okay, go ahead.
I can't speak for this young man.
Okay, go ahead.
But over in the projects, it was normal. And so when the police were chasing us, most of the time we had committed a crime. Now, did they go over the limit? Absolutely. Same with Floyd. You know, I'm gonna be honest, and I know this ain't gonna sit well with a lot of people, but you know, he initiated the whole situation.
How?
Now, by passing counterfeit money.
Allegedly.
Well, that's what the store owner who called the police on him.
Yeah, it's still alleged. I haven't heard
the store owner know, because if somebody give you a fake 20, you gonna call the police. I've been given fake money before as a barber. Now, I didn't call the police, and had I realized it at the time.
But you're not saying that give them the right to kill them.
No, I didn't say that.
No, I want to be clear, because you know people.
No, but yeah, I know, but they want to believe what they want to believe. But here's what I'm saying. If you don't start a snowball rolling down the hill, it never gets an opportunity to turn into a snowman. You see? So here's the same with the situation in Atlanta. Here's how I look at it. Now, it was tragedy how it ended. But if the guy was in the line, apparently passed out because the other customers said they had to drive around him. All right, so now he's not just an innocent bystander.
He wasn't passed out, sir. He was sleeping.
Most people ain't just gonna fall asleep. He was drunk. I'm gonna call the truth what it is. And we either high or he was on that fentanyl. And that's the only thing gonna put you in a coma where people can't wake you up.
Sir, now, do you know that for sure?
But that's what they reported, just like you know. Because we both wasn't there, right? So I'm only going that. You wasn't there and I wasn't there.
So how can you say the man was on fentanyl?
I didn't say he was on fentanyl. You got to listen. I said those are the things that have you in such a position that you can't respond automatically. They said people in the drive-through line were blowing at him, but they end up having to go around him. Finally, the people at Wendy's called the police. Again, Hattie ain't in the line, and then, listen, from what I saw, when they tried to arrest him, he started fighting. Now, he put a hurting on the police at first. I mean, I watched him. He beat him up pretty good, got the taser away from one of them, tased one, but here's where I disagree. They shot him in the back. Now, but I'm gonna tell you, in real time, this is what I was talking to somebody out in the green room, Brother Ty. In real time, in a rumble, you don't know how you're gonna respond. Although they train to respond a certain way. If somebody have already beaten you up, tased your partner, and if they think they're gonna run away with your taser, it's not gonna happen.
So you killed the man?
I'm sure that wasn't the goal, but they did.
It happened. It doesn't
but
matter.
This is what I'm saying.
It doesn't matter if it was the goal or not. It happened.
But see, you never talk about the fact that you initiated the whole scene by resisting arrest, fighting with the officer, and now it leads to this. Now, I heard you had a preacher on before.
I don't believe he was fighting with the officer, but
well, you didn't see all the video.
No. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that there wasn't a fight. I'm saying I think he was defending himself. I don't think he was initiating that.
You ain't defending yourself
I'm throwing that out there right now.
But you ain't defending yourself if they tell you under arrest and you start fighting. It's called resisting arrest. Now that's the truth. Now here's the other part of that equation. I remember
you can go back to what happened to George Floyd. They said he was resisting arrest too, until I saw what happened behind the car. They showed the front camera.
The George Floyd thing was a little different in that report. But how he don't pass the counterfeit money, the police
allegedly. Thank you for.
See, you don't want to hear the whole story.
Put allegedly in front of that. But I want you to put allegedly in front of counterfeit money.
Well, it's allegedly. Why did the man allegedly call the police?
I don't know. Shoot, black
you don't know.
Get called by the cops all the time.
People just don't call the police on you for no reason.
I've been called on for no reason, by the way, sir.
That's rare, brother. I'm gonna tell you. Now I've been in this city all my life.
Well, I'm letting you know that it doesn't happen. It happens.
I grew up. I'm 64 years old, just about. I grew up in Riverside. I lived on 22nd in Lamont, 9th in Monroe, Bethel Village, and the Bucket. And I've been on 3rd and Clayton for the last 30 years. Now, I've been accused of not being black, but I don't know nothing but the inner city life. I ain't been a saint. I wasn't always a preacher. I used to do other things that I don't like to talk about and I'm ashamed of. But I'm gonna tell you something. Most of the friends that went to jail, that got arrested, they were guilty. I knew it, even if they beat the case.
Hey, Calvin, let me ask you a question that
Yes, sir.
I asked the other pastors. What role, I mean, because you come from a different perspective, and I appreciate that. And I'm loving this dialogue because this is how we do on Crossfire. It's Crossfire. And I love it because you can talk about whatever you want here. And I asked these other guys this, the role of the black ministers. Do you think that you guys could play a bigger role in the community? Do you think
we can?
You have not played the role that in the past? And what's different and what can we do different?
You know what I teach my young people? Two things. First, as a preacher, I teach them to be godly. I teach them, and I know if they're godly, they're going to stay out of trouble. And then I underscore and emphasize on them being productive, law-abiding citizens. I tell them you can live to fight another day. When the police come, if they ask for your driver's license, proof of insurance, registration, surrender those items. I said, if they ask you to get out the car, get out the car. Because if you get to fighting, I mean, this is something that it says in the Bible. Now, most preachers don't want to believe this. We say karma. Some people say you do dirt, you get dirt. But the scriptures say, if you sow the wind, it ain't always the wind you reap, but the whirlwind. In other words, you could do something small, like I believe Brother Floyd did in Minneapolis, even if it was a counterfeit 20. Look where it ended up with his death. And so I try to avoid the situation that could possibly lead to a worse situation.
Who would you best describe yourself as a follower? Would you be like a King or X or Malcolm? I mean,
well, I want to say, contrary to what most people believe, I'm probably a little more like Malcolm X than Martin Luther King.
I would think that.
No. Because I believe what Malcolm was a reasonable man. He tried to address things logically.
Right.
He said he wasn't a Democrat or a Republican. I don't believe in all the philosophy of the nation, but I respect him a great deal. Now, Dr. King, he was more civil rights. I mean, he was for, maybe making sure that we can move in a white neighborhood. But this is what I always said. If a man don't want me in his restaurant, I don't want to eat there. I'd rather say, well, let's get Stormin and a couple guys together and build a restaurant where I can go and feel comfortable, and I know you ain't going to poison me. Why force yourself on somebody? Sir, I mean, if somebody don't want me, I don't want them.
It wasn't about going into a white restaurant or white-owned businesses. It was about becoming better as a whole of a race. It wasn't about becoming friends with the white people or going to their restaurants. It was about how can we evolve as a black community into putting ourselves into a better situation. It was never about going into a restaurant.
Well, they wanted to be accepted. They wanted to be accepted.
No, they didn't want.
I think I get this situation a little bit better than you. I think I'll live through it. And black people at that time, when white folk told you was good, you felt better about yourself. Not that if we told you was good. See, and so Malcolm said, well, I don't necessarily need the white man to say that I'm all right. I know I'm all right. And hey, listen, I'm happy with, I mean, if they want movies with Elvis Presley and whoever it was, maybe I like James Brown better. And so I was all right with me. And here's what I found with most white folk, because I went in the United States Air Force when I left P.S. DuPont because there wasn't no money for college. Now, the Air Force is one branch of service that's almost primarily all white. This is 1974. Now, I went there thinking that all white folk had money, they all had nice homes, but I met white folk who were broker than I was, who was going through some problems with their girlfriends just like me. They had difficulties. And you know what I found out? When I got to be closer with people, that people basically all the same. It's how they are reared, it's what we tell them. And this generation coming up today, I had a young man come to my barbershop the other day. Now he got two little kids in the back seat. He got music on that is loaded with profanity and obscenities. He's smoking weed The two kids sitting in the back seat look like they on drugs because they nodding from this stuff they call loud that they smoking. Now, I'm saying to myself, now here, brother, you got two little kids in the back seat. He said, man, they used to this. This how we get down. Well, okay. In about 6 or 8 years of that kind of indoctrination and that kind of steady diet, the one thing that the former leader of the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad, used to say, you are what you eat. And that's just not physical. But if you take a steady diet of profanity and immorality, it's going to flesh itself out in how you live.
Yes, Pastor, I want to shift gears a little bit to the presidency. I want to know why you think Donald Trump is a good president.
Well, here's how I look at it. You know, the one thing that we struggle with in America is economic opportunity. I'm not a program guy. I don't want nobody to give me a check every month and tell me this is what it is. You get $400 a month and 500 food stamps and this Section 8, and you ought to be all right with that. Here's what Donald Trump did in my favor. And we can't deny, before the pandemic, it was the biggest economic development in American history. More African Americans were working, more whites were working. The stock market was at an all-time high. Now, you know what I equate that as? A big pond with all kind of fish in there, and all they saying was, here you go, Brown. Here go a fishing rod, and you go get it. Now,
yeah, but excuse me, Pastor. I think he took that from Barack Obama. Like you said about the fish in the pond. That's like me feeding the fish, and then you come the last 2 weeks and feed it and say, oh, I made the fish.
It wasn't Barack Obama's economy. There was a number of regulations that Donald Trump got rid of that opened up business regulations that allowed for companies to progress. Now, Barack Obama,
but he still overtook it, sir. Pastor, it doesn't matter what you did. When let's say Joe Biden wins the upcoming election, he's going to feed off of what Donald Trump did previously. So it doesn't. I mean,
that's not necessary. If you reverse some of the things that got you somewhere, then the things that got you somewhere are not going to be impact no more. So therefore, you're not going to go where those things took you.
Okay, explain to me what Donald Trump did then.
Well, he released, first of all,
reverse it.
Well, okay, a couple of things real quick. He lowered the tax rate on corporate America, so that gave him more capital to work with. He also gave them, for the first year, if you bought a piece of equipment, he would allow you to write that equipment off in 1 year. In other words, if you was a construction company and you bought 2 dump trucks, rather than go through a 10-year depreciation expense where you only get that money back incrementally, he would allow you to write the whole $200,000 off, and basically you bought the truck for free. Now that frees up capital, that allows you to do more work, that makes you more competitive, and that's going to have you doing a better job. And so it is a number of issues. The stock market went from 18,000 to 27,000 in the first 2 years of his presidency. Now you might say, I don't got no money on Wall Street, but if you got a 401k,
we have 1 minute left to round this up, and I certainly don't want this to be a Donald Trump commercial.
Yeah, well, he asked me.
I know, I appreciate it. I appreciate. I think little Jermaine's been on fire. I mean, I appreciate his questions. This is why we call it Crossfire. We just running out of time. Hey, Pastor, I appreciate you coming on, though, man.
I appreciate coming on.
Anything closing?
Well, I just want to say that, you know, as a community,
as it relates to what we're dealing with.
Yeah, right now. As a community, I'm gonna tell you something. I'm depressed. I'm disturbed by what's going on too.
Okay.
I mean, I'm black. Nobody don't know whether I was an R or whether I was a D or independent.
And I don't care, by the way.
Yeah, and I know you don't. And that's why I mean you close like that. But I want to say this to African Americans as well as to other people, that we're gonna have to learn how to be civil with each other, because I'm afraid that if it gets uglier, it'll get worse. And I tell people all the time that, you know, in the 60s, I saw the tanks on Governor Prince Boulevard, and the Army come in, and it could turn into a massacre. And I definitely don't want to see that happen to my people or anybody else's people.
Thank you so very much, Cal.
Thank you for having me.
Hold for 1 second. We're going to hold, and Jermaine and I will close off a little commentary, about 2 or 3 minutes about the show. But stay tuned, and this is why we call it Community Crossfire. I love you guys. Stay tuned.
Take care.
Huge outpouring of support for businesses like Casey's here, which is brand new for us, and for Barbara Devan and her folks. Down at Lafayette on Wednesday night, the first night they reopened a couple of blocks away. Huge crowd there, and bought a lot of gift certificates. I just want to say, for folks who want to support businesses like this, They can go to Lafayette. They have gift certificates there. Here at Tasty's, I'll have gift certificates next week. And for those of us who want to support our businesses downtown, it's a great way we can do that. Give the gift certificates to our friends and family members. I can give them several to law enforcement officers and some of our heroes, some of our first-line defenders. So it makes me feel good, it makes them feel good, and helps make sure these businesses get off to a good start.
I want to thank the community for showing so much love to Tasty's for the last, we was only open for 5 days, then we shut down for the riot now, we back open. But we've been getting so much love and support from the city of Wilmington and other parts of Delaware. Just from the license inspections and the health department, the fire department, we've been getting really a lot of support from the big businesses down here.
The key to the success of any organization I've ever been a part of, I don't care if it's like a baseball team, I don't care if it's a college, a university, a high school, a business, a hospital, a city, a state, key is for success is always leadership. Always leadership. I think we're blessed here in Wilmington with good leadership, gifted leadership, like our mayor, like the folks on city council, and they got a lot of people in the community that are involved as well. And Mike Brzezicki, to his credit, he's not a divider, he's a uniter. He's not somebody that builds walls, he's a bridge builder. He thinks we're stronger together, and that's the kind of leadership we need for our country, and I think that's the kind of leadership that we have here in the city of Wilmington.
In closing, I want to thank the mayor, Mike Brzezicki, for an incredible job, in my opinion, what he did with this outbreak and people rioting. I thought that he did a magnificent job. I want to give him a big shout out. Lisa Blunt, Rochester, Darius Brown, and so many other people. My sisters Anthea, Hanifa Shabazz, and we're going to be talking about some political issues. Jermaine, thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me on today. I think it was good. I think we had some amazing guests, and I think it's going to get better every show, and I can't wait to the next one.
So ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned, because when we get really into this political war with some of these phonies, we're going to undress some of the phonies, because that's what we do. We don't think that we're scared to fight. And we have a record. You know, by the way, I want to give Sam Guy a shout out. At least this guy has a legislative record. Some of these other folks have no legislative record. It's just mouth. Bye.